Welcome to all people from every corner of this planet to the first episode of Apply Philosophy to Everyday Life. My name is Aralia Valdés, and it's a true pleasure to be with you. In this first episode, we will review the question, who I am. How many times have we been asked this question, who are you? The most common answer we usually hear are name, profession, gender, or age. If they ask me, who are you? I usually answer, I am Aralia, a philosopher, I am a woman, I am 38 years old, I'm from Mexico City. Well, I can give an infinite list of characteristics about who I am. But when I give this infinite list trying to explain who I am, at the end of the day, I do not succeed. I do not explain who I am. If I answer I am Aralia, I am giving you my name. If I say I am a woman, I am telling you with which gender I recognize myself. I could answer with my age or my profession, or with any other characteristic, but I am not just an accumulation of characteristics. Let's analyze it a little bit. Socially, we are required to have an identity, to build ourselves as individuals. That is to say, I, Aralia Valdés, have an identity that I have built throughout my life, which corresponds only to me. Each identity is unique. It cannot be stolen or acquired by anyone else. Can it? There is an old dilemma, an old question that I would like to ask you. If we have a ship and that ship goes to sea, let's suppose that it will make about 800 trips in its lifetime. And on trip 801, it broke a piece of the mast, a piece of the bow, and a piece of the stern got damaged. The ship's mechanics start to check it and report all faults. Then it looked great, and we are very happy with our boat and send it back to sea to continue fishing. Months later, the boat breaks down again. Another piece breaks off, and we call the mechanic again to replace it, and so on, and so on, and so on, until there is not a single piece of our original boat left. The question is it still the same ship, or is it already a different ship? Well, if that question is complex for an object, translate it to a human being. Who I am is something infinitely complex. I am not just my name. I am not just my age. I am not just my gender. I am not just my nationality. I am not just my profession. I am not just my preferences. I am a collection of all of this. I am a great compendium of many things that compose me. The question is, how many of these things that compose me can change without modifying the person I am? Can we really say that we are always the same person? Let's put this paradox of the ship in futuristic terms. Imagine that science has advanced tremendously. We have a couple and we go with this person in a car, and suddenly there is an accident. And this person is left with brain damage. The first question is your partner, who now has brain damage, still the same person? Even though he or she cannot speak and cannot express him or herself in the same way as before? We change the example a little. Again, your partner has an accident and suffers brain damage, but medicine has progressed so much that they managed to give him or her a brain transplant. And then, the same body of your partner remains with a brain of another person that we did not even know. The question is that person with a new brain and with the same body of your partner still your partner? Or is he or she a new person? Most people tend to say that this would no longer their partner because, although they have the same body, the mind is no longer the same. That means that the mind is a fundamental or necessary element for identity, for being oneself. It seems that at the end of the story, there are three elements that allow us to speak of identity or of oneself. 1. The mind. The body of ideas or experiences that we have involves memories, in which the relevance of having life experience with the people with whom your body has contact is emphasized. 2. The permanence of ideas. If I have a blow to the head and I wake up without having any idea, any perception of what I was before, am I still me? Most people would answer that I am a new person. But if it happened to me, I don't know if I would assume myself to be a new person or the same Aralia in a different construction. This issue of the idea of time lived has to do with what we call soul or essence. Even if I lose my memories, I am the same person because I keep my essence. And the third important element is the body. We have then mind, time, soul or essence, and body. If we lose any of these three elements, we could then open the possibility of saying that I am no longer the same person or that the person in front of me is no longer the same person. To try to summarize, identity is something that is built holistically in a society that necessarily involves three solid or hard elements that remain over time, which are the mind, ideas, memories, and experiences, time, what remains, the soul or spirit, and the body. If my body is totally changed or if I modify my body by 60%, am I still the same person? Let's go with an example for this third point. If again, my partner suffers a serious accident and science is very advanced and his or her body is destroyed, but his or her mind is intact and they manage to transplant his or her brain to another body, my partner will theoretically have the same ideas he or she had, the same memories and the same experiences. We are fulfilling two important components which are mind and memory, but he or she will have a totally different body. He or she may even be of another sex. What would happen then? Would I still see my partner as the same person? Or would he or she be a totally different person? As you can analyze, thinking about who I am is not something trivial. And depending, as I said at the beginning of this episode, on the answer we gave to that question is how we situate ourselves in the world. If at one moment I answer who I am, and my answer is philosopher, then what I am putting as my shield, as my flag, as what is most important to me is to be a philosopher. But if I answer who I am, and the first thing I say is I am a woman, then I am putting gender as my banner at that moment of my existence. We have to observe ourselves. We have to see what we each answer, to see what elements we are raising as constituents of our person. The risk of thinking in this way about who I am is that the word I am is something that leads us to think of things already done, already determined, and delimited. How many times have we not heard that it's said that the being is either born complete and goes through life looking for his or her better half, or is born perfect? That is to say, by the simple fact of belonging to the human race, we are perfect or superior to others. The truth is that neither of two, nor we are born perfect because we are absolutely perfectible entities, nor we are born looking for their better half. This has to do with the great myths such as romantic love, which we will see in a future episode, in which we will depend in this regard. But the important thing about this is that the self, the word I am, sounds like a totally. That is, I am something, and that necessarily implies a duration in time. I am always this. I am always going to do this. I have always liked these things. I have always been like this. The danger of talking about ourselves from our identity, from raising these flags that indicate what I am, is that we generate an abstract idea of ourselves, as if we were obliged to preserve our essence or the elements that characterize us once and for all our lives. I am gay. I am a woman, I am a man, I am a philosopher, I am a fighter, I am a mechanic, I am a teacher, I am a soccer player. All these things that we affirm as what we are lead us to a dangerous place, because they lead us to think that we are always the same way and that we always have to be that way. The thought of identity or the question of who I am at the end of the day restrict us many possibilities of experiencing ourselves in continuous transformation, because it limits us to be only one way and to defend that one way against all other ways of being. So we have to think carefully when we answer who I am. Sometimes I like to play and answer that I am not. The truth is that I am not. I can be many things that I am not yet, and I don't know who I am. But if I answer with determination that I am A, B, or C, I am affirming in my mind that in the future I will never be able to be H, Y, or J, because what I am today is what I will always have to be, and I will never be anything else. That is what they call identity, because it is something supposedly permanent that allows us to identify ourselves among ourselves and therefore to point out to others, as if by nature we have an essence that indicates our group of belonging. We must be very careful with this essentialist thinking, because it is a germ of fascism, because this so-called essence is not natural or immanent to our existence, but it is built within our social groups to speak of identity. It is a socio-cultural construction that leads us to divide, separate, and classify ourselves, that serves to form ranks and tell us women down here, men over there, blacks over there, and whites up here. Anyway, the problem of defining identity from the essence is that it leads us to think absolute things, complete and totalizing ideas, which takes away the possibility of continuing to build who we are and forces us to already know and define ourselves from our supposed essence. Remember that, as Aristotle said, we are rational animals, but we are born as animals. We are not born rational. The rational being has to be built up over time. It is one thing to be born with a brain and quite another to be born knowing how to think. Rationality does not happen by itself, but is a cultural learning process. It is very easy to go through life being animals, but not rational. And it's supposed that what distinguishes the human being from the animal is precisely rationality. So, we have to train this rationality to be able to think as individuals beyond our essence or supposed identity. I insist, it is very dangerous to think of ourselves from concepts that we are equate with nature, such as essence and identity. Saying things like, I am like this since I was born, prevent us from continuing our construction as persons. Remember that the human being is an animal under construction. We are always reconstructing and deconstructing ourselves. That is why it is very important that we allow ourselves to get rid of old and outdated ideas and see the world in a fresh and different way. Words like identity force us to make certain determinations and limiting definitions that put us against the wall. Do not allow us to modify ourselves. Do not allow us to be in freedom. They only allow us to be in a restricted, absolute, undetermined way. Well, we will delve a little deeper into this subject in the following episodes. Just remember that human beings are built socially and not individually. Well, thank you very much for listening to me. Before I leaving, I comment that this is a self-managed podcast. That is, it has no funding or profit with it. So, I invite you to put a grain of sand to this project so we can continue to share the philosophy. You can donate whatever you will directly on my website www.araliavaldes.com or do it by PayPal or send me an email at araliavaldes@gmail.com. Remember that Valdés is spelled with an S. Well, thank you very much for giving me your ears. We'll hear you in the next episode.